I'm Jacqueline Gelineau, and I'm joined here today with Juliette Sicotte, who is the Liberal MP candidate for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. Juliette, thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We appreciate you reaching out as well.
So you have a neat riding west side of Okanagan Lake, and it does swoop around right into Kelowna. What are some unique challenges that are facing your community right now?
Yeah, you're right. The riding now wraps entirely around Lake Okanagan, from the end of Lakeshore Road in Kelowna up into Southeast Kelowna, over the bridge into West Bank First Nation, West Kelowna, Peachland, and Summerland. And the thing that we all have in common is that lake. And so we have issues with our water, protecting our natural resources from wildfires and from floods and droughts, and protecting our natural resources from being annexed by the United States.
Um, you have a background, you worked in the private sector for many years. Can you talk about how your background could help you as an elected member of parliament?
So I was born and raised in a small mining town in northern Manitoba called Snow Lake. And my father was a hard rock miner for 35 years. He was a diamond driller, and that's very, very hard work. What he taught me was perseverance. And from my mother, I was instilled progressive ideals that I still hold dear today. From Snow Lake, I moved up to Yellowknife, and that's where I connected with my culture. So I'm Métis Cree, and I started working in a fine art and sculpture gallery, and I was completely surrounded by the beauty of my culture, and I connected so strongly through art. From Yellowknife, I then worked for a fashion designer in Vancouver, and she produces haute couture with her Haida indigenous artwork on the clothing. Again, there I connected with my indigenous heritage, and I connected with so many people across the country in the political sphere, in the business sector, in so many different ways. I connected with so many people across the country, and I still have. I'm great friends with these customers, and they came from all the different political parties. So I have quite a diverse network across the country. From Vancouver, I've lived in Kelowna now for 30 years. And I have always worked in the small and medium-sized businesses. So I've developed a very serious business background, and I'm being Indigenous, I think is will be very beneficial in the Liberal Party, because they are building a lot of bridges into the Indigenous community. And with my background and my connections into my culture, I have my feet firmly in both worlds. I'm Canadian first, and but I have my feet in both the Indigenous and non-Indigenous worlds.
Mhm. A really key topic for this election in particular is resource extraction, barriers to resource extraction, issues with trade of our natural resources, lumber, minerals, and whether it be with the states or other countries internationally across the oceans. What would you, or how would you, as an elected official, intend to address the balance between, you know, one party is calling for reduced barriers, other parties are calling for, a real to slow down resource extraction.
So, as I mentioned in Mark Carney's announcements, he has very solid economic angles for getting these things done. And in a true liberal fashion, he also understands that we can't just ignore environmental issues. We can't just ignore Indigenous rights. They have to be all taken into account and dealt with properly. So I think he has the ability to bring it all together and make it happen.
Mhm. Um, Housing and affordability is another really key issue, particularly in your riding. What would you do if elected to ensure your constituents are properly housed?
That is a very good question. So that I know municipally they're doing a lot of work trying to get people housed in the tiny homes. There's a great initiative going on there. And Mark Carney has released a platform to build houses for government to build houses at a rate that has been seen since the Second World War. And I think again, he has the economic chops to make that happen. Um, and he's committed to building 500,000 homes per year.
Mhm. What would that look like, specifically in West Kelowna? And I know, or and in your riding, I know zoning is a provincial issue, but are there any like key factors that you would be advocating for? I think it's no secret we have an aging population. Many people are needing very affordable housing, accessible housing, that sort of thing.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. We have an aging population as well. We have a very growing sector of young families moving into the Okanagan. So making these houses affordable and also um, em training and employing people to build these houses is also going to help our region. But you're right. They have to be affordable and we have to get these up fast.
Mhm. Um, in saying that, so we've had I think the Okanagan is compared to other places in Canada disproportionately impacted by the effects of climate change. We have the wildfires. Right now, we're dealing with a landslide on West Side Road, which is directly related to wildfires. We've had heat domes, we've had crazy cold snaps. Um, what would you do if elected to, advocate for your community that is impacted by the impacts of climate change?
Exactly. So you listed out all the things that have happened to us and in the last 20 years, the Okanagan has been ground zero for the effects of wildfires, droughts, and floods. Mark Carney has released a platform on protecting agri-food workers because, as you mentioned, the cold snaps that we experienced a few years ago devastated our crops. We're the breadbasket of Canada, and our stone fruits were so badly damaged. So he has a plan to protect agri-food workers, and I think also trying to create a just transition off of just relying on oil. And he has a plan to work with more sustainable uh, energy, like solar and other kinds of more sustainable solutions.
Mhm. You mentioned agriculture and agri-food, which is one of the industries that's, they've said to us, we're being hit by the impact of tariffs on both sides of the border, importing and exporting. What would you do if elected to make sure you're advocating for our farmers, in light of the trade war that's going on and other industries as well?
So I think the key to that is in breaking down our interprovincial barriers. And I remember growing up in Manitoba seeing the BC Tree Fruits little logo on our fruit and having that fruit available in Manitoba. I would love to see our fruit being distributed across Canada
Mhm.
before and because of these tariff issues. I think if we can do start with trade amongst ourselves,
Mhm,
having one economy instead of 13, I think
mhm.
that will help our agri-food workers.
What are right now some of the barriers to interprovincial trade, and like what specifically would you be looking to remove just for people who aren't familiar with that?
Well, what we've been because we're such a great wine producer, it's starting with our wines and our fruits. So breaking down those long standing issues that have held back the ability for our wineries to ship across the country.
Mhm. Okay. Um, and what should elected if your party, if the Liberal Party doesn't win, if they're not the leaders of the country, it is looking like it's going to be a tight race between the Liberals and the Conservatives. What would you do though if elected, but your party's not in power to make sure you're advocating for your constituents?
I would spend a lot of time talking to people that are in their industries and finding out exactly what is their problems. Uh, it's just going to take a lot of conversations and building relationships to advocate for what's best for our Okanagan Valley.
And as you mentioned your Indigenous heritage, and we have a very strong Indigenous community within your riding. What sort of unique challenges are those communities facing that you might be able to bring to the table in Ottawa?
So West Bank First Nations, I've actually done a lot of work with them, and I did some volunteering with their youth, and I helped them with. I created and I co-founded and created a program that helped them with their public speaking, leadership, and evaluation skills. And School District 23 adopted it into their curriculum for uh, for Indigenous kids in the school district to then go on to become docents at the Kelowna Art Gallery. So I'm very proud of that. They have a very strong nation. They're a very proud, strong nation, and they're self-governing. I'm reaching out to I meet with some of their counselors once a month and understand what their needs are in the community and how I can assist.
Um, so the geography, the landscape of your riding is beautiful and expansive. Do you have a favorite part of your riding? Like what keeps you here?
Yeah, the entire region is just so gorgeous. When I talk to people in my line of work, so I sell industrial instrumentation to engineers all over the world, and I have a global reseller channel. But when I talk to Canadians across the country, everybody has a connection to the Okanagan Valley. They all have a unique connection to where we live, and what the things that they talk about are, of course, uh, enjoying the lake and hiking and of course the wineries and the Gulf. So we have a very unique, beautiful riding, and I think our outdoors, anywhere you go hiking in the Okanagan, it's there's a selfie opportunity there, and oh, we're just so fortunate to have such a beautiful area that we live in.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Jacqueline.